Yeah, is it oh, you can barely see it.
Well, from this camera.
Yeah, you need to pan a little bit.
What do you mean? Like,
Pan, yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, it's just visible. Although it's fairly like you just see the black hammer. Just fairly cool.
to start. Well, it's on my. I have a MacBook Pro that runs my media center now. I play music with it and do my texting and shit while I'm painting, so it's a lot easier.
All right, see Farsight, sound check, sound check. All right,
Subsea far right.
we have good sound and oh, hang on.
We don't have good sound.
No, we do have good sound, but I didn't change the overlay, and now we have the overlay. All right.
Okay, is my audio better if I turn this up?
It's good. It's good. 185.
185. I already knew that. I actually looked it up. I did. I looked it up the last two shows. I just am like ridiculous. Okay. Good evening and welcome to CanHammer, your stop for Warhammer 40k from the Great White North. Today's show is episode 185, and we're going to talk all about the new tournament missions.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
About time.
Oh, man.
As I say, as usual, I'm your host, Chris, at CanHammer Chris on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Darren. Everywhere, seemingly. Everywhere.
Yeah, you said that, and I was like, you're not really everywhere.
I started to post on the Instagram again.
But now you're on...
I'm, like, starting this new paint project, so I started to post on there and gather comments and ask questions of, obviously, more proficient painters than myself, so that should be cool.
Yeah. So you're on a podcast, right? Is that last week or the week before?
I've been on a few. I was on Normal Blokes with Denise. You remember Denise who came from Australia?
Yeah.
Capital City like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I was on that. And then I was on with Brian and the guys at Grim Dark Casuals, which I guess are based out of sort of Chicago area. Ooh. So I was on there. And I'm going to be going on Biff Pod, Best in Faction again at some point with Mitch and Peter, the Falcon, to talk toadies with Mitch. And yeah, been on a few places. It's been busy.
It's always fun. I was just worried I was losing my mic arm there for a second. But so a couple interesting things in the world of 9th edition have come out, and we're going to cover those on this show. But before we do, let's keep the lights turned on.
Yeah, big shout out to Dan and Dylan over at Red Dragon, letting us borrow their demo copy for one, which was pretty sweet. Last week, got a chance to actually look at the box and everything. Models are pretty cool. They're kind of like push fit, but not quite like like Underworld's push fit. So it's
you mean snip the tab so it fits in with the super glue push fit? That's what Underworlds is.
Yeah. So, but they're pretty cool. They're obviously amazing models. I can't wait to see the rest of the Necron range. I think they're revealing some new models. They said this weekend on launch day. I don't know what they're going to reveal, but it should be cool. Maybe some more cool marine buggies. I don't know.
Yeah. We need more Primaris Marines. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and shout out to David Tistamines, Hoyt up in Thunder Games and Gifts, and the Dream Tea Boys, who are making us some new merchandise and new objective markers because our old ones are now too small. And Martin over at Dyson Decks. All our patrons, followers, subscribers, thank you very much for your support. And yeah, I think that about covers it.
Cool. So big news, the big news that broke the internet. There was some Q&A online at GW. Are we going to be allowed to use Vigilus in the new Warhammer 40,000 9th edition? And the answer is...
No, it's right here in the Grand Tournament pack. No specialist detachments.
I'm so angry.
Because it took me a minute to realize that the Relic Shock Attack gun is, of course, from those books.
And one of the really good Orc shoot twice stratagems.
Which one is that?
It's the second one. It's the one that allows you to shoot the Relic Shock Attack gun twice, and then like a Bad Moon unit twice, and also some of the vehicles and stuff. So,
yeah,
unfortunate.
So there's a lot of things in there. Affects a lot of people. AdMech, GSC is boned basically. Their two big detachments were Vigilus books. A lot of the guard tank
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, artillery, the two-shot basilisks,
Yep,
or
the relic battle
yeah,
cannon.
yeah.
Uh, Thank you. I hated that thing. What else? Admech, the manipulus thing. Actually, I think we, as in Custodes, were the only people who did not have anything in Vigilus. Dark
No,
Angels, Raven
there
Wing
was.
Attack Squadron.
I don't think there was that much for a lot of stuff in there, right? It was only like Space Marines, as we mentioned,
No,
GSC.
almost every faction got one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, except for Talons.
I don't know. I haven't looked at them since. I was like, man.
Yeah, Marines
These
got
are.
things like the Grey Shields, the Siege Breakers. I mean, Imperial Fist got double bammed by this. Raven Wing Attack Squadron. I don't think Space Wolves got anything decent from it. So there's a lot of stuff in those books that are now gone, which is, I think it's kind of cool. Like, we're always complaining, oh, we have too many books, too many books, too many books. So now they cut some books.
Yeah. So now my orc army is 2 books instead of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm gonna move on from it. There's a couple things that bother me about the relic shock attack gun going away, and they're not in isolation with just the Vigilus going away. So the new Supreme Commands and the way that the new detachments work, orcs relied very heavily on having like 3 cultures kind of mixed together.
Yeah.
So you would have, your shock attack guns. You could reroll 1 hit, 1 wound. Death skulls.
Yeah.
And then you get the. But now it's like, okay, well, it's hard to fit them into a detachment as death skulls. So if you want to take a shock attack gun now, the best place is to be like Bad Moons.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. Like, it's really not the same.
Yeah.
But okay, you put them in Bad Moons, and then it went up in points.
Yep. A lot.
And I was like, a lot. And I was like, okay, this is kind of frustrating because now it's not really playable. And then they just banned Vigilus. And you're like, okay, so now I can't take it at all.
Yeah.
So now even the non-relic shock attack guns, I feel, got like nerfed into the ground when they really weren't a problem or that bad at 80 points.
Yeah. It was the relic one. Right?
It was the relic. Well, it wasn't even just, it was the relic is death skulls with the grots. So you would take like a battalion, and you would take like, a weird boy, because it doesn't matter what culture they are. And you'd be like, this guy would have 30 grots to protect him, or you take a second shock attack gun as the HQ, whatever you wanted to do. And it was that combo as death skulls with the relic shock. So like you stacked all these combos, and instead of just getting rid of one of the buffs, they got rid of like all of it. So now it's like all the shock attack guns are now like on the shelf, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is like it's like when they nerfed conscripts for Astra Militarum, right? They like went up in points, and they nerfed their abilities, and blah blah blah. Like, it just went on and on and on.
Like the Grey Shield loss, I won't be mourning that. I mean, that was stupid. Like, oh, let me just be this Marine for this turn and this Marine for this turn. Like, that was so stupid. But I feel for Guard. I mean,
I wouldn't, because a lot of the good artillery and tank lists got a buff in this edition anyway. So it's not like a Leeming Russ got a huge hit this edition. Like, oh, you lose the relic battle cannon, but you're still able to shoot like into combat. You're still able to do a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
You're not going to get wrapped as much. It doesn't care. You don't care if people touch you. So there's still like a net positive. It's just that like when this news came for me, because I only care about myself. When this news came for me, it was like I already thought they nerfed it to a point where it was a decision to take it
because of the points change, or
points and detachments.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to run a Death Skulls battalion.
Yeah, for 3 CP.
Yeah, but then you lose so now it's like, and you lost all the CP, and the fact that we have less CP makes it even worse. So yeah, I felt just like that thing got nerfed in every possible way, which is, I guess it makes sense, but
yeah,
people really hated it. But.
Okay, well, the other thing that happened that we didn't even cast about really was that they released all the points basically.
Yeah, which is great. There's not a lot to talk about, I guess. Like, there's documents that say this is how many points things went up by, and a lot of things went up by a lot of points throughout the whole edition.
Did you get hit other than the shock attack gun?
Yeah, boys got hit and Grots got hit pretty substantially.
Grots went up like 2 points or 3 points or something, didn't they?
Yeah, so they went up. Well, and it's like if you go by percentage wise, they went up, yeah, significant, like
Yeah.
60% or something. Yeah. Um,
They're the
so
same as a
now
guardsman.
they are the same as a guardsman, which honestly makes sense because they're almost as good as a guardsman. Like when you would take 30 of them, they're well, they hit on the same as a guardsman, but when you take 20 of them, they hit on better than a guardsman, a 3+.
Yeah.
They have the same essential gun. They're essentially fearless with a war boss around of the same culture. So in a lot of ways, yeah, Grots were like guardsmen. They were a little bit underpointed, and that I think that went to show when people could take 300-400 Grots and it was like bent.
Yeah.
Now though, if you go through most of the books, most troop choices have gone up.
Yeah.
So almost across the board. So, and even ones that maybe didn't deserve it. But if you look at that, that's a good way for GW to kind of lower the overall model count. Is
Troops.
everybody's mandatory tax is a lot more points.
Yeah.
But yeah, boys went up as well. So now the choice between a Grot and a boy is a lot more.
It's a choice.
Yeah, well, it was a choice before. They were both good, but you could have them both. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Now it's a choice. Like, you're not going to see 120 boys anymore. You're going to see maybe like 90 max. And I still like the Grots. Like for 50 points, 10 of them, it's better than a lot of stuff. But I'm also leaning towards maybe like smaller units of boys and trucks.
How about the mech guns? Did they get hit?
Yep, they went up to 40,
From I can't remember what they were before.
like 32.
Okay, so they went, but they got cheap. But did it equalize in like not having to pay for the gun anymore, or a total of?
No. So that's a total. So the basic chassis for the mech guns, it went up to 20 points. So all the mech gun artillery went up, and then the actual mech gun only went up 2 points because it went up just previously.
Yeah.
So it's 40 points in total, which still makes it one of the best mech guns point for point. The fact that they made it blast is really good.
Yeah.
Except for it can't shoot into combat, so that's kind of really bad too.
Can
At the
still
same.
touch it.
Yeah, so they're hit or miss. I'm gonna test them out this Saturday again. I haven't used them since the upgrade, but we'll see how it goes. I still think for their points cost and what they do, they're still gonna help you out. Like they'll allow me to stop you from like there's well as we'll talk later. There's a couple secondaries to get into your opponent's zone. Those mech guns will allow me to kind of screen out my zone, still do some forward pressure, but I don't have to spend a lot of points on Grots or Orcs to do that.
Yeah. And I see for next Saturday you're running 2 big blobs of Meganovs. They go down or something, or
No. So that was just sheerly of a stream for like I have them paint like not fully painted, but they're like 2/3 painted, so they're like tournament legal. And it's just kind of like I didn't get a lot of use out of my Mega Knobs in 8th. I used them at like 2 tournaments, and I used them at maybe a dozen practice games.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of looking at, my boys and my Grots. I got use out of them. So if they sit on the shelf for another edition, it is what it is. Those are my 5th edition boys, 90 of them anyway. So it's like, well, whatever. I used them. So I just wanted to get the use out of the Mega Knobs. My other theory with them is that a lot of the terrain, like there's -1 innately on the board. So Mega Knob sitting in terrain, down to a 1-up save with a -1 to hit maybe. They could be kind of my way to keep you off my artillery, hold the center of the board, and then just hopefully if you come in. My final list doesn't have Gazgul. I just couldn't fit him in, but I really wanted to take him. Or does it?
it does.
It does, yes. And then I threw Gazgul in to support them, yeah.
Yeah.
I took him in and out like 5-6 times. I couldn't remember what I finally sent you.
And of course, you see behind Chris right there a whole bunch of blue models.
Yeah, so Sisters of Battle, I think, came out of this really, really well. My Sister of Battle list is like 120 models. It's not super optimized, but I did decide to go with just a horde of sisters. Hopefully, most of them have a 4+ invul. They ignore AP -1 and 2. And they have a 6-up, basically feel no pain. So they're going to live through a lot of damage. Mm-hmm. And I think that my Horde sister army, it's like 100 and something models. It's a bit misleading. I think it'll pressure people into pick secondaries, into killing my stuff. But that stuff's really tough to kill.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bait and switch. I'm banking on the fact that most people are going to take vehicles of some sort, one or two, and then a lot of people are going to take anti-vehicle weapons. And so with my sister army, I just went all sisters in a brigade, and solely to be counter meta. So any anti-tank weapons that anybody takes are essentially useless against me. They're going to kill one sister, or maybe not, depending on what they are. But you pop off one sister, and then that's it. And I should be able to flood the board, hold the objectives, and it'll be very good for some of those secondaries. I think having that many scoring units.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out to Scary who just showed up on the chat. Welcome, Scary.
Yeah, I saw his Dark Eldar list. It's looking pretty small compared to before.
Yeah, so they played an RTT this weekend, and he lost in the final to Devin playing Custodes.
Gross. Custards.
Yes.
No, yes. Damn you, Devin.
We shall see this weekend. Well, I guess just for people to know, on Wednesday we'll be streaming a lot of the day. We're going to set up the stream at Chris's place on Wednesday and hopefully get everything working perfectly fine for Saturday. Of course, Saturday is our big 9th edition launch day. We've got 6 games planned and a lot of kind of chat in between, giving our thoughts and stuff. It'll be the first time that some of us have played 9th edition, and some of us have played a few games before already, so it'll be really cool. Everybody's bringing different armies and trying different stuff, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think most people are taking maybe the army that they want to be very competitive with in 9th edition, but they're taking a spin on it. Like I know Jason took a spin on his Dark Angel. He's trying to test out some of the Terminators and things like that and see how they function.
Yeah.
So I like, you look through the list, and I think like most of our lists are like 80%, 70% hard as nails, and then like 30% is just like
try random stuff.
Yeah, try stuff. Like my list is definitely like that. I have a few extra characters that I really didn't want to take. I just didn't want to add in like 3 more sister units.
Now's the time to try stuff, right? Especially for us, we got a new book, but new edition, no real big tournaments going on. Just get stuff out and try it, man. Like it's like the time to try everything. And with
get some motivation.
Sweeping points changes and a new edition, like I think you just try whatever you want. So it's gonna be good fun. And I saw the picture of your fridge today, Chris. It's got I don't know how many drinks in there. And,
yeah. So we decided as a collective group that because I'm going to be barbecuing, all of our meals, all of our drinks are like 0 calorie or like 5 calories or less, and all of our meals are keto. So
yeah, I don't know how this happened. Like while I was working, it just happened.
Yeah. So I did buy like hamburger and sausage buns for people that don't want to be keto, but I guess like Jason's keto, Nick's keto, Nick's not keto, but he's low carb, and so is Cody is like keto or low carb as well. So, and then I'm like, yeah, I could just use it. I don't need to drink beer and put on more weight. So,
well, it should be good. So, we're probably going to start sometime around 9:30, 10ish. It's not set in stone, but we'll let people know on the social media when we're about to start. Give people some notice, and we're just going to try and stream as much of the day as we can, and so it can be cool. Hopefully, it won't be too many pool streams. I don't know. It might devolve into a stream by the pool.
Yeah.
Podcast by the pool.
Yeah, I was like saying that like after you get your gamer funk on, just go rinse it off, right? Okay, cool. So I think we should get into the missions, which is the topic of today's show.
Yeah.
So these were leaked. Basically, I guess we could start going into it.
Yeah, so right under the specialist detachment thing is the rule where you can't have Imperium, Eldari, Tyranid as your, because that wasn't in the BRB, so everyone's like, oh, was that gone? It's not gone, it's right here. And then also there's a paragraph here now clarifying that, you have to do your Warlord and your relics and stuff on your army, but if either player has stratagems that are used before the battle to upgrade, then this is the time now, step 2, where you write it, and then you hand your army roster to your opponent. So that again seems to imply now that actually all those things are actually done at the table and so can be changed between rounds at a tournament.
I think that's going to depend on
I think
that.
the
So
tournaments will, yeah, they'll just make their own pack. But
yeah. So the way that the missions are written is they essentially just have steps into playing a game of Warhammer 40,000. Now, steps 1 through 4 are essentially, well, sorry, I should say 1 till 3 are essentially in army list creation and determining the mission. So as tournament players, we're kind of assuming that these are going to be in the pack and kind of outside of game to game. So, which
yeah,
is, and as Darren was talking about, they did change the fact that they did go with, like, you can't, you need to have basically within certain faction guidelines, right? So,
yeah, yeah. So if we jump ahead now, after objectives and battlefield and stuff like that, so all the missions are objectives pre-placed. There are no variable objective
oh,
placement
I don't
at
want to jump
all.
ahead. I don't want to jump ahead. Because number 4 is the most important. Let's read the mission briefing,
Read
dude.
mission briefing. Oh, okay.
Place objective. I love that they're like. That's why he wants to skip over it. Place objective markers. They're all pre-placed in each mission.
Yeah.
So, do you think? I did want to talk about number 6 though, just in the fact that, do you think because of the fact that you place objectives and then the players create the battlefield, do you think that tournaments are going to allow players to create the battlefield, or do you think the terrain? I know at the WTC, they're going to pre-place terrain and to have terrain maps, or they're thinking about it. I don't know if that's written in stone, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you did it before, I guess like Adepticon, you continue to do it. And if you didn't do it before, I can't see you going to doing it. I mean, I don't want people touching the terrain anyway. But I don't see a lot of people doing that. And I think most people would rather have a balanced, battlefield that doesn't overly advantage one person over the other, right? And I think the big problem is going to be how much terrain and what pieces and making sure everyone knows what pieces are what pieces. I think that's going to be the TO challenge. And the last thing you want then is the people like mess it up and place their own terrain, I think.
So I do like player place terrain because it eliminates the display board syndrome, where people move the terrain and then the guy that gets the table first places the terrain, and it may not be fair. And I know they say, "Oh, you can call a ref over, blah blah blah," but that's
You
kind
could
of
put a picture or
annoying.
something.
You could put a picture, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like, letting players place their own terrain and going one after the other adds a little bit of skill and also forces people to, like, I guess it takes away a lot of the BS that could be. Like, it forces people to own up that they placed the terrain properly instead of just being like, well, the board screwed me or something, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's pros and cons to both. What do you think we're going to do?
I don't know. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
It depends what we do. Because as we said, Jason and I were looking into, we haven't done it yet, the 50 standardized tables. Well, those would be easy to have like a map for.
Yeah.
But the problem is like a lot of our other tables are one-offs or custom build. Like this is a desert table. That's a snow, like Astra Militarum bunker. So it's like, well, you can't make maps for 100 tables, like,
No,
or 200 tables.
Too much work. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I have train pieces that need to be replaced, and so now I have to update their map and that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for us is going to be key is to as a whole we're going to have to define like we kind of have a general idea of what kind of pieces we have, and then to define those as either this or this or this and what rules they have, and then maybe put that as a same sheet on every table. If you have this kind of stuff, it's this. If you have this kind of stuff, it's this. Because as you say, I don't think unless you end up replacing all your tables with this standardized stuff, it's going to be too difficult to go back because you built your terrain over so many years, right? And as you say, if you start replacing stuff, it's just too much work.
Yeah, I have a few cool ideas on that. Like you could, as a TO, I was thinking about getting like balsa wood or popsicle sticks and making like little wooden signs and putting like what the terrain is on it, like what this is played as, and kind of sticking it on the bases as kind of like a feature. Might look a little bit poor in certain battlefields, but like you could put this is this type of terrain, or you could just do a piece of paper. But yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Tokens. I don't know. You know how the AOS have the little markers?
I love that actually. That you just like. I actually love that about AOS. I kind of wish even though I hate that 40K. Rule. Like, and then you can like buy or make those train dice, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And cool. In terms of the battlefield itself, I have found a lot of people were upset with the terrain rules. I have found actually the terrain rules are quite good if you have good terrain. So it's not going to save you if you have like 3 pieces of terrain on your table. If you
Yeah.
have a lot of terrain and the terrain is good, whether or not it has windows or not, then the terrain rules are actually very good and it actually makes the game a lot more strategic. You have to think about whether you want to go in or stay outside the rune now. Whether you want to tow the forest or not, like these are important decisions that could influence whether your unit lives or dies. So I think the terrain rules in the games that I've played so far are actually really good. Once you wrap your head around all the different terms and stuff like that, but it does play better on a heavier table. So, and from what I've seen online, most people are not playing with heavy enough tables to really feel the effect of the terrain rules.
Yeah, you gotta play heavy terrain this edition.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess the next thing you do is after you create the battlefield. So I guess it's the first thing you do when you go to the enemy table is select secondary objectives. And I like that it's here. It's before you do anything else.
Yeah.
So you look at the opponent's army list, and as we said before, certain things will be on that list, like which items or things of that, like psychic powers, things of that nature. But it's nice that you look at their list, you pick this. You don't know if you're going first or second. It's very clear. I like it there.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing too about the way these missions work with the secondaries and even a lot of the primaries, a lot of these missions are very almost like in a way like more ETC or WTC style.
They are.
Is that it feels like in some ways you're playing your own game. So like you and I could play and could tie. Whereas in the ITC, it was really hard to tie, let's say, because you had to have the exact score, but it's like 1 point, it's a win. But this feels like you and I could both play and both get a really high scoring tie.
And maybe nobody die.
Yeah, like it's just kind of interesting the way that it is. Mm-hmm. Now, do I think that how this game is won, in my opinion, which we'll cover the secondaries in a minute, is not allowing your opponent to score secondaries is going to be how you win these games.
And scoring primary.
Well, I believe that I feel like most armies are going to score a decent amount of primary in all missions. I feel like if you bring a proper list and you both play it, I feel like you're both going to score a lot of primaries. It's the secondaries I feel like are going to win you the games.
Yeah, I mean, I've only played a couple games, so I don't know. Certainly, the primary was where the game was won and lost, and people scored very few secondary points at all.
Well, that's how they're won. So if you're able to score the secondaries,
yeah, I do feel like if you can pick a secondary that you can get like 10 on, you're that much closer to winning.
But I think most of them you can. I think like to say, I feel like you can get 20, 30 secondaries quite easily. My opinion. Might be wrong.
The only thing that's what I found has been happening, and when I've seen online as well, and other people were giving their bat reps in the Discord, is that the primary becomes so lopsided that nobody cares about the secondaries. The game is already over.
Well, unless you deny all their secondaries and score all yours, right? Because they both cap at 45.
Yeah, but usually it's like you run out of time to do that. Because now it's only 5 turns.
Yeah, but I think that's like where people, because I think the primaries, the secondaries, they come down to how you build your army, and so people will build their army to get those secondaries in the future.
So it will be very interesting to talk about this again after Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe I'll eat crow. Maybe I'll eat my own shoe. Doesn't really matter. I'll eat something. So the next point after you select your secondary objectives is you determine the attacker and the defender, and so it's just a simple roll off. And then whoever wins this roll gets to decide whether you're the attacker or defender. So I kind of like that. It's not like whoever wins it's the attacker. It's like you get to, okay, I won the roll, which is random chance, and now I get to choose essentially whether I want to deploy first or deploy second.
Yep.
And which or it's more about choosing zones. But so if you become the defender, the next step is choose deployment zones. So the defender selects the deployment zone of their choice. So you can either select your zone or allow the opponent to select their zone in the previous roll. Then you declare reserves and transports. And this is
secret.
Yes, this is the best thing they added. This is the thing that I love this. So you know your deployment zones. but you don't know where or who's deploying or going first, and you need to write down which unit is going into reserves and which units are going in transports. This is a huge change for the game because it's like in the olden days, you'd be like, okay, how many drops do you have? Oh, you have this many. This is, and then people would put that many units in transports just to guarantee maybe that they get the +1 or they get to go first. But now you have to kind of do it. You could be like, well, if I don't put anything in my transports, my opponent might put everything in, and you're kind of guessing on your opponent.
Yeah, and it's also just the deep strike decision, right? So the perfect example was last game. I was playing Phil, and I had made the decision to deep strike my Terminators, and whereas I probably should have left them on the table because he then put like 6 raids and right in my face, and like I wish I'd had them on the table. So it's interesting, this one step 10 right here, the secret declaration of reserves and transports.
And the wicked thing is that those units in reserve count as already deployed. So it's not like before where it's like, oh, I have 3 units in orbit, they take up 3 drops.
Yeah.
No, these are done. Okay, these units are done, we move on. And then the next step is deploy armies. I'm not a fan of turn-by-turn deployment, but it is that. So you rotate. Yeah. The defender gets to start first. So the person that picked the deployment zone gets the disadvantage of throwing a unit down first. And of course, you've already decided what you're going to do in your transports and all that good stuff. And you just take turns until it's done. And they added in this time because it was an issue last time, but is that if your model's too large, you just put it on the board edge. And then it can't do a bunch of things. If it can't fit in your zone, they have special rules for that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, again, so deployment, I would prefer like deploy your whole army, go first or go second, but they didn't do that, whatever.
So it's another roll-off.
It's to go first, which
no
I'm like...
pluses or anything. Do you think they should put in a plus? Do you think TOs are going to put in a plus or something like that? It's, to me, it just seems like too many rolls for too many things. Like, it's just like...
Well, they got rid of C's.
So there's no more C's, yeah, for sure.
Which didn't make sense when you'd roll off to go first, then you'd roll off to steal it. It's like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because of the fact that you need to put your units in transports and stuff in secret, which means you're already choosing to reserve. I think the fact that they make it a random roll is going to force people to deploy conservatively. So you're going to maybe put a lot more things in reserve than you normally would because you don't know that you're going first. So I feel like doing it this way with just a random roll off is forcing everybody to null deploy to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, and now you have, of course, the ability to put anything in Deep Strike, basically.
Yeah, and you get to choose. So if you win this roll, you get to choose to go first or second.
Yeah.
So like I feel like if I almost want to always null deploy is how I feel right now. Or well, with my sisters I can't null deploy, so it is what it is. But a lot of people are, if you have a lot of heavy threat units, you're going to force the other person to take first turn. And then if you null deploy them, I don't know, you can kind of work some things out. So it's pretty cool. But it's not my favorite way to play the game. My favorite way is obviously the deploy your army, go first, and seize. But this is fine for now.
Yeah.
So after that, we have what, Darren?
You start the battle, and then there's a little
pre-game abilities.
Pre-battle abilities, blah blah blah, and then there's a little blurb here about conceding and ending early.
Yeah. And then ending the battle, it ends after 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I didn't like 6. I thought 6 was too long. And I
6
hated
was definitely
variable.
too long.
For sure I hated variable.
Yeah, I hate variable as well. I like that. As I said before, the only thing I don't like is the deployment in the first turn. And yeah, and then the winner has the most points. And so you can get 45 points from the primary, 45 from the secondary, maximum of 15 points from each of the 3 secondaries that you chose earlier. I don't know if we said that you get to pick 3. For a total of 90 points, and I think everybody knows this, that if your army is battle ready or painted to a battle ready standard, you get 10 victory points.
Well, some people thought that wasn't going to be in the GT pack, but here it is.
Oh, of course it was.
Some people were hoping, I should say. They were hoping that it wouldn't be in the GT pack, but here it is.
Now, to be honest, most tournaments, minimum standard is battle ready, so.
Yeah.
I could see not having it in there, and just being like whatever. But as I think we discussed on a previous show, like I would like to keep that in there and then remove paint scoring from the tournament and just have a painting competition, maybe.
Yeah, it would make life easier.
Yeah. Just have, if you want to be entered in the painting contest, we'll mark your army, and then everybody else just does this.
Yeah.
And it's every game. So if you're doing a 6-round tournament, that's 60 battle points that you're losing out on because you didn't stay up till 2 a.m. and paint.
In the hotel room with Will Paul.
Yeah, I've maybe done that a few times. Yeah, quite a few times. Okay, so next is the secondary objectives.
Okay. So the interesting thing about secondaries is they're mostly the same as the ones in the rulebook, but there's been a few added, but otherwise the ones that are copied are basically about the same. And the warlord one has been changed, so that's interesting they did that. But it's otherwise the same, so you can pick 3 secondaries, only 1 from each category. There's 5 categories. You can score 15 points per secondary max, so up to a score of 45 points. And so there you go. They also put them in a different order for some reason. Maybe just to mess people up. I don't know.
Yeah. So you want to start off with Battlefield Supremacy is the first one.
Yeah.
Which one would you pick out of these 3?
My army's not good at any of these. But basically, if I was to pick one, I'd probably pick Engage on All Fronts, which is the new recon.
So you have to score. You score 2 victory points at the end of your turn if you have 1 or more units from your army wholly within 3 different table quarters.
So it's a lot harder now. It has to be 6 inches from the middle, so no more camp in the middle to score all 4 zones. And you have to be the unit has to be wholly within, so no hedging your bets and straddling 2 units, two quarters. And you only get the better points if you have all 4 instead of just 3. So, it's actually a lot harder to score a good amount of points. And even then, it's only 3, so you have to do it, if you want to max this, you have to do it all 5 turns, which for many armies is doable, but for a lot of armies is completely not doable.
That's not doable.
It's pretty hard to do.
It's pretty hard to get a unit in the opponent's deployment zone turn 1 to score this.
It depends on the deployment, right?
Yeah, but even still, I guess you could do it turn 1, and then you're going to lose that unit, and then what are you going to do to get in there next turn when they push out?
Table quarters would be the only one you could possibly do turn 1 with a very fast-moving unit, assuming your opponent hasn't screened you out. Yeah.
Yeah. Line breaker, this one feels like it's impossible. 2 or more units from your army with wholly within the opponent's deployment zone.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough. You
need to do it 3 to 4 times for decent points.
Yeah, to get the full 15, you need to do it 5 times.
4 times, because you get 4 victory points.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 4 times. I can't.
But then the last time you were only getting 1, so it's kind of I'll stick with, Oh, no, you're getting 3. Yeah, you're getting 3.
And then domination, 3 victory points, you control more than half. So you got to control 4 in a mission with 6.
Yeah.
Or you got to control 3 in a mission with 4 objectives. That's also very hard to do.
Yeah, so it's not
doable,
hold more, it's more than half.
More than half the objectives.
Yeah, and that's 3 points. So you have to, again, try and do that 4 or 5 times, which is pretty hard to do.
So that's about dominating the battlefield, which I think with the new blast weapon rules and things of that nature, that one's a lot harder than I think people give it credit. Yeah. Then there's No Mercy, No Respite, which is basically murdering people, right?
Yep.
So the first one is basically you have to kill models. And then you divide by 10. So it's the new Reaper. So in order to get the full 15 points, you have to kill 150 enemy infantry, or you get 10 points if you kill a vehicle of 10 or more wounds. So you basically have to do 150. If there are a lot of vehicles, you might have to do 180 wounds essentially to an army, as long as those wounds kill models. So not wounds, but you know what I mean. Everybody understands.
So, let's say your list now, which is maybe one of the more hordy armies out there now. How many models do you have in your orc army?
It's only my orcs
or your sisters, I guess.
So the orcs isn't a horde at all.
Not anymore, I guess. Yeah.
Because so it'll be 16 mech guns, and there'll be 30 grots, 2 units of mega knobs, and a bunch of characters. You're getting nothing. You'd never pick this. The sisters, 130 models. You have to kill my entire army to get 13 points.
Yeah,
you have to take
tough models.
Yep. Then there's grind them down. 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if more enemy units than friendly units were destroyed this battle round.
So that's kill more. Again, you have to try and do that 4 or 5 times.
but I like it for certain lists. Like
Yeah.
Custodies, I feel like you could probably pull this off
Yep.
every turn. I feel like maybe Tau could pull this off, depending on the build. Grey Knights could probably pull this off every turn. A lot of Marine lists could probably pull this off. So
Yeah, so when we're coming to pick for Custodians, we're usually either picking Grind Them Down or the next one, While We Stand We Fight, as one of our secondaries. Because we're hard to kill and we're also kind of killy. So that's the combination you want. You need to kill, but you also need to be hard to kill so you don't give up the kills.
yep, and then there's keep your 3 most expensive units alive till the end of the game.
Yeah, and so Custodian's good at this too.
Well, maybe, yeah. I think Grey Knights would dominate this.
So it's model, remember, not unit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we have Land Raider, Telemon, and Valoris, and that's like almost guaranteed 10 points at least. So
No, because you're gonna lose those 2 tanks.
no, you won't.
Oh yeah, you will.
No, you won't.
Oh yeah.
No.
You're gonna keep a Land Raider alive till the end of the game.
I've kept the Land Raider alive for 4 turns with like a couple of CP. It's really hard to kill them now. And the Telemon with half damage is really hard to kill.
But it's not the end of the game. Like, you have to keep them alive to 5 turns, not 4.
Yeah, but by the time the 3rd turn rolls around, they have nothing else left to kill the Land Raider.
Who are you playing?
Hey, we'll see how it turns out.
Okay, we'll move
models
on.
are hard to kill.
We'll move on. Purge the enemy. Titan
Purge the
Hunter,
enemy.
10 points if you kill 1 Titanic model. 12 if you kill 2, and 15 if you kill 3. Great if you're playing against a Knight player.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy 10 points because you can probably kill 1 Knight.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just gravy.
Bonus,
if you get
bonus, yeah. There's serious diminishing returns on the last 2 nights. But yeah, even if you get 10 on this, that's a big advantage right up there.
So bring it down. I think this is going to get selected a lot. Basically, you get 2 points for every
Game Hunter.
monster vehicle, and you get 3 points if it's over 11 wounds. So things like mech guns, yeah, you kill like 7 mech guns, you're at 14 points.
Yeah, but that's a niche opponent there with so many mech guns. I mean, most armies don't have that. Their vehicles are harder to kill.
But like when you play the guard guys, you probably kill 4 Leeming Russ. It's 12 points. You know, Chimeras, Basilisks have 11 wounds. They're worth 3 points. What else? Any of the repulsors, any of the tanks, you know, any trucks. Tau, maybe, well, they don't really have monster, like, you know, Riptides, but you're not going to kill too many of them, probably. Yeah. Drones did go up, so maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're going to see this a lot, and I think it's going to be easy because there's the GSC, all the trucks they're running.
Yeah, I think there's a good one if
Dark
you're playing
Eldar
those armies for sure.
But most armies are going to have this. Talos fall into this category.
Especially as the vehicle meta that everyone's predicting comes into effect.
Now, this one I like, Cut Off the Head. I think it's like stupid, kind of. But if you kill the enemy warlord turn 1, you get 13 points.
So in the rulebook, this is Slay the Warlord, and you just get 6 points, and that's it if you slay the Warlord at some point in the game. So now for the GT pack, interestingly, and we can discuss why you think they did this. So now the later you kill the Warlord, the less points you get. So if you kill the Warlord in the last round, it's only 1 point, in which case it's totally useless. So to get the same 6 points, you need to kill it by round 3.
Yeah, and I kind of like this one in the fact that there's a lot of armies that can like character snipe. So like a lot of Marine lists, let's say. But then you could just like make that decision if you see somebody with lots of snipers and they've already picked Cut the Head, and you could be like, well, I'm just going to put my Warlord in reserve.
Yep.
So you're not going to kill him.
CP and put the Warlord in reserve.
He's going to come in turn 3, and if you kill him turn 3, you get 6 points.
6 points.
But hey, if I go second and he comes in turn 3, you're not killing him till turn 4.
Yep.
So it's definitely cool. And it might also mean like maybe make your Warlord something it's less squishy, I guess. The next one, which really screws my sisters over, is Assassinate, 3 points per character.
Yeah, I think that's good against lists with lots of characters like that, or lists where they're going to throw their 2 or 3 characters at you, like Smash Captains and that stupid Judicart loser and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'm taking a lot of BS characters
for
the fun of it in my sister list for this Saturday. In reality, there'll be 2 less characters, which there'll be only 5. So you need to kill all my characters to get 15.
Yeah. That's not too bad. If you get 9, I think that's great for a secondary. All right, then come the action Secondaries.
Shadow operations.
Yeah. So these are all the secondaries where you have to have a unit do an action, usually for a whole turn, and survive and not do anything basically, in order to achieve this.
I don't like these at all, but like some of them are good, like they're really good, but it's like, oh, I hate things that take like a full turn, right?
Yeah. So raise the banners is an interesting one. You can park infantry. This is kind of like a new SAP engineers. Like you park the infantry on an objective at the beginning of at the end of their movement phase. They raise the banner and they have to do nothing for a turn. And in your command phase, you get a point. But then they can move off and you continue to get points for the ones that you've raised banners on and points at the end of the game. So you kind of want to do it early on a 2 or 3 objectives, and then even if you don't get any more the rest of the game, it still adds up to a decent amount. So this is an interesting one, and this is kind of maybe hinting at why GW was saying everybody's going to want to bring troops or infantry anyway to do like stuff like this. But yeah, you could do this with a character. You can do this with lots of units that may not otherwise be doing anything, or maybe just standing in an objective anyway.
Yeah, I think like this is an easy one to just do in your own zone, and maybe midfield and just, yeah, as you said, get those easy points. Might be good to do like a character with some kind of shield in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it doesn't stipulate you can do it with a character. Cool. And then there's investigate sites.
So this is basically you have to do the same thing but in your enemy's zone. And it can't be a character, and they have to be within. Oh no! This is the center of the center of the battlefield. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's challenging. That starts getting more challenging. Yeah. Well, you get 3 points, but.
Yep. So you have to basically survive in the center for a turn, with no enemy units there as well. So that's pretty tricky. The next one is a new one for the GT pack. Deploy scramblers. So basically, at the end of the battle, you score 10 points if you do this action 4 times. I think it is, right? Yeah. 3 times. And this action is one infantry unit other than a character has to be if you perform it wholly in your own deployment zone, wholly in your opponent's deployment zone, and then 6 inches from either deployment zone. So if you manage to do that, then you get 10 points. If you do only 2 of them, you get 0 points. So it's like an all or nothing sort of deal.
Yeah, and then the last one, teleport homer, is one infantry unit from your army has to perform it in the opponent's deployment zone, and then they have to survive in the opponent's deployment zone.
That's right. Yeah, that's the.
I don't like any of these, to be honest. Except the only ones that I could kind of be like is raise the banners just to get some guaranteed points. But yeah. I don't really like any of them.
Yeah. Okay, and then final category is the psychic ones, which is interesting that they made a whole category of secondaries for psyker and anti-psyker. So that's pretty interesting. So Aboard the Witch is amazing if you don't have psychers. Basically 5 points for every enemy psyker character you killed, 3 points for psyker units. So that is what you pick if you don't have a psyker, if you're playing Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, most Chaos Armies, I guess. Yeah. That's a good secondary.
Yeah, it really depends. Like Brimstone Horrors, dead.
Are they psychers, Brimstone Horrors?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen a Brimstone Horror in a long time.
They just die. Well, they're crap. They're crap now too. They're not. You're not going to see them. But
all right. So all the other 3 involve a psyker doing a psychic action instead of casting a spell, and they have to do it a certain number of times in order to max your points.
Yeah. So, first one is 18 inches of an enemy character, which is risky.
Yeah.
6 inches of the center of the battlefield, which is risky, but more doable. And then the last one is 6 inches of your opponent's battlefield edge. Well, mind you, if you have like a deep striking, you want your psychers. You want your psychers on the board early. That's not good.
Yeah. Those seem hard to do.
Those seem really hard to do.
Yeah, and especially if you're like 18 inches of a character and that character is like a Calexis or something.
I'm
They're
thinking
not hard
like
to cast though. Warp Charge 3, Warp Charge 4.
I kind of think like you go a no mercy, no respite, depending on what you're playing, and then purge the enemy, and then you kind of look for the last one out of the other three.
Yeah, and of course, all the missions have their own secondary that you can choose, and I suspect a lot of people are just going to default to the mission secondary because it kind of is in the course of what you're trying to do in that game. Maybe, I don't know. It might become the default just to pick the mission secondary as the last one. Yeah. So, what do you think of the secondaries like overall?
They're better than the ITC ones were.
Yeah.
They make more sense. They're simpler. I found the ITC ones a little bit like too many restrictions, and like you can pick some of these ones, but not these ones. And you can kind of pair these ones, but these ones don't count on the same phase. And some of these ones do count on the same phase, and some of them don't. Whereas I find this really clean. Like you just pick 3. Here's 5 categories, or you take the mission one. Done. Super easy. I just like it. Yeah, like some of them, you're right. They're all very hard. So that's what I was kind of getting to the point earlier is that you read through them, they're like, oh, they're all very hard to get 15. So that's where I think like if you can stop your opponent from scoring these and you can take those cheeky units to score them, this is how you're going to win, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're aiming for 15, it's going to be difficult. I think you got aiming for like 5 to 10 and you're doing really well. If you can score 5 to 10 on like 1 or 2 secondaries, I think that's a jump, you know? That's already like 30% of that half of your score, if you see what I mean.
I kind of feel like you should try for 30.
30.
Yeah. You should design your list for 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think that you go into your list design already and your games already knowing what secondaries you're going to pick that your list is good at doing versus where before you kind of just rock up and you'd be like, well, you know, it's this mission, is this opponent. Like, I almost feel like you kind of know what you're going to be picking in most circumstances.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like a good third of those are just never going to see that much playtime.
Yeah.
Maybe more. Maybe half of them. But yeah. It's good variety. You get to pick, which is a lot better than just being given something and having to deal with it.
And they're going to be changing them, apparently. So.
Oh, of course they will. Yeah, in a year. Yep. So I guess I don't really want to go through each mission, but I do want to talk is they did kind of change up the deployment zones. So they got rid of all of the pointy deployment zones.
Yeah. I noticed
which I'm not opposed to that, I guess you could say. From what I could see, maybe they have them in the other missions, but the ones that we've seen, there's no pointy, which is great.
And obviously, all the deployment zones are now measured from the middle because these ends of the board may be different in terms of length.
One of the interesting things that kind of happened is standard Dawn of War deployment did come back full swing. So there is like, I think it's like 50% of the missions have Dawn of War deployment now.
1/3, I think.
1/3. So it's 33%.
3 missions
out of 9. Yeah. So that's a lot better than like before where it was like 1 in 6 or something like that. Like whereas Dawn of War was at one point in time kind of the standard mission deployment. So it's good to see that kind of back more. It makes it more comfortable to a lot of tournaments to play more missions that way.
Yeah.
And there's, essentially only 2 ways that you're going to play lengthwise, which is kind of nice because those can be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, they still got table quarters, they got Vanguard, and they got this new one that people were trying to math out the other day with the it's not quite full Vanguard, it's slightly less slanty, but then it's like the objectives are in a square. So people were trying to do like complex math to figure out like how you place those objectives. Anyway, that was pretty funny. But otherwise, everything is fairly based off the center, so everybody should mark the center on their mat at home. So then it make that easy on yourself. And then everything just measures from the center. There are only 2 or 3 missions, I think, possibly just 2. 2 missions with an objective in the middle of 9, which is interesting. 3 missions, yeah. So 1/3 of them have an objective in the middle, which is okay. And otherwise, the objectives are fairly spaced, I find.
Yeah, but and there are missions. There are missions with no objectives in your deployment zone. So you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
I love that. That means like the gunline players, they can't do anything. There's like that forces you to push forward. I definitely like that. And then so that means with the fact that the armies are a lot smaller, the more you can force an army to push forward, the harder time that army's going to have protecting their backfield, which will give a lot more added value to the units that can outflank or deep strike, because they'll be able to get in behind them, which will be really nice.
So the primary is basically the same for all but 3 of the missions. So 1/3 of the missions, you score 2 points for one objective, and you have to hold 2 objectives instead of just 1 to get that first 5 points. So just be wary of that the primary does change on 3 of the missions.
Yeah, so you got to be able to hold objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, easy peasy. So hold objectives, but that's what I was saying before is most players should be able to control 2 or more objective markers, or 3.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like in a lot of these missions, you should be able to hold 2 of them. And if I hold 2 and you hold 2, Darren, and we're both playing conservatively, we're going to tie the end of the game, or I'm going to be up by 1 point or down by 1 point, and it's all going to be secondary. Most armies should be able to hold half the objectives.
I love the little designer's note on the Vanguard mission.
You don't agree? You don't agree? You just brush me off, man.
I don't know. We'll see. I think you have to be able to hold 2 to stand any chance of winning.
Oh, of course. That's the minimum.
I think if you get bullied off of 2 and you're just holding 1 for anything more than 1 turn, you're basically lost. Yeah. But I guess that's a sweeping statement. But
well, Vital Intelligence has 4 objectives in the middle.
Yeah. And
so
a designer's note saying, here are the easy measurements for Vanguard, although this only applies on certain table types. So it's interesting. But yeah, that's most of them. It's actually tricky. Like, depends on your army. I think armies that can send lots of units to different areas of the board that can kind of survive a little bit are going to do well, really well. I think like Scary was playing his Drukhari kind of like that, and was doing pretty well. Just kind of min units flying all over the place.
Yeah, it's addition of MSU for sure. MSU with that many objective missions and the way a lot of the secondaries are written, yeah, with no kill points anymore. Yeah, it's MSU for sure.
So you don't have to kill anything for primary. You don't have to pick any kill secondaries. And I don't think hardly any of the actual mission secondaries are involved in killing either. So you could like win a game without killing a single model, and just like you could win a game even if you get completely tabled just by controlling objectives for long enough.
So just refresh me because I forget, what were the tabling rules?
Yeah, the tabling rules are, so if you both agree to end the game early, so they don't really talk about tabling, I don't think. We'll go back here.
But it doesn't mention that you get bonus points for tabling.
No,
you just play. So from how I read it, which I don't, maybe somebody has a more complete book or whatever, but how I understand it is you could be like, I have no models left, we just keep playing, right?
Yep. So if you both agree to end it, you take your points at that point and you're done. If one player wants to end it, they get 0. They concede, they get 0, and the other player can keep playing.
Yeah, so I would assume that if you table me turn 3, we can just be like, nothing happens. Not like I can say, let's keep playing and get my points.
Yeah.
So you could get tabled turn 4 or turn 5 and win the game.
Yeah. So there's nothing in here about tabling, like losing all your models.
Yeah. Well, that we know of, right? That could change.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that could be somewhere else in the book.
One would assume it would be here, but we don't know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think of that? Do you think that we should have tabling?
I mean, so the feel bad that happens is like if you don't want to table somebody, because if you table somebody, it stops and you miss out on points, right?
Or
that's one feel bad. The other feel bad is if you get tabled, I mean, you don't have to keep playing. You can go have a beer and the other person just plays for points, I guess. It also depends on, whether it's just going to be straight up battle or whatever, but it probably will be. So I don't know. I don't think I feel strongly either way about it.
Part of me thinks that you shouldn't get penalized for getting tabled. Like part of me feels like You should just, oh, if I get tabled, I've just chosen to expend my resources earlier in the game than you did.
Oh, there is tabling here in
Oh, is
in,
there?
in 15. Ending the battle. If one player has no models remaining in their army at the start of their turn, the other player may continue to play out their turns until the battle ends.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that's it. That's what we said, right?
Yeah, that's
There's
tabling.
no but there's no rules on it.
That's the only rule.
So read it again. Sorry, read it
So if
again.
one player has no models at the beginning of their turn, the other player may continue to play out their turns until the battle ends.
Yeah, so it's exactly what I said. There's no tabling. So I could lose all my models turn 3 but win the game.
Yep.
Because it doesn't say that you get a bonus point. It doesn't say that you lose or I lose or
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like you could, if you hold all the objectives and score a few secondary points and get tabled by like end of 3, you could still very likely win the game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
don't know.
that I've heard that happening already for a few people in the Discord where, they got tabled but they still won. They held on by like 5 points or whatever.
Yeah. I guess it's a gamble, right? You're banking that you can get more points by throwing away your resources early game than your opponent can get even with an open table at the end.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
they may not have that much left themselves, or they might be in bad position, or you hem them into their corner long enough. Like you could like push your force right forward, keep them in their zone for up to like end of 3, and then you just totally get wiped, and they don't have enough to get out there.
I like it. I actually think it should stay that way for sure.
Yeah, that's right up your alley, Chris.
Well, I
Just
don't get tabled. I take
to
horse.
jump all those people right up right up at the beginning.
It's not that. I think about that more from like a tournament organizer standpoint. And a lot of the complaints or the feel bad moments happen around tabling rules. As you said before, right? There's rules like, well, I have to string you along. That's a feel bad. But it's also like um, tabling somebody and then them just losing, even though they're miles ahead. That's a huge feel bad for people.
The old 20-0 thing for ETC was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 10-10, 10-10. Oh, it's 11-9. It's 11-9. Goes on to turn 7. Oh, it's a 20-0.
Yeah. And added to the fact that it was like a roll for like variable game length, and yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of feel bad elements around that, and I kind of am okay with that just being gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. I hope and one of the things about this tournament pack. So I guess like my first thing I want to say about it is this is the best GW released scenario pack that they've ever done.
Yeah.
This is the most playable scenario pack on launch day. Like last edition, we were playing rulebook missions with just primaries, win or loss, right? Who cares? So this is the first time, I guess, that GW has had a competitive and somewhat balanced, I guess, early on pack or mission pack.
Yeah.
So that's a big kudos, best one they've ever done. Yeah, the only things I don't like, as we said, are the deployment and the start, but that is what it is. Can't change that. Other than that, I don't think there's much that I would improve on. You?
No, I think you can judge it all you want, but you got to go out and play it, and then make your judgments. I think
It'll get stale after a year, and then they'll change it, and that's
yeah,
fine.
I mean, the rumor is 6 months actually, but we I guess we don't know. But it'd be interesting how often they change it and how much they change it. If it's like completely different every 6 months or something, that would be
Yeah.
keep it spicy.
6 months would be a great milestone. A year is a bit too long, especially with the way that like units come out and points change and things like that. A 6 month cycle would be very good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether that's kind of synced in with the ITC season or whether these things have happened, because all those guys have had their hands in on this whole process. So be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be also interesting to see how long, if and when people start to rewrite or write their own comps or things like that.
So that's kind of my next comment on this is for the next 3-4 months anyway, 6 months, which if you pretend COVID didn't exist for the next, I have no interest in playing in a serious big tournament, like a 1 day at the store RTT that they write their own missions, whatever. But I have no interest in playing anything other than these missions at a tournament.
Yeah. And they all signed on to the process, so they probably committed to GW to be at the big events anyway, running these missions till X, if not maybe contractually obligated. We don't know about. Who knows? But I don't think you're gonna start seeing those big events doing any kind of comp for a while.
Thank God. Yeah, I don't want to see that at all.
Yeah, we don't want to just go back to what we just got rid of, which is 6 different comps in 6 different parts of the world, and
It wasn't 6, but yeah, I know what you mean.
The whole point was that everybody plays the same shit, right?
Yeah, that's what I want. So you want to move on to questions?
Yeah, okay. Let's go to Discord for questions. If you got questions in the chat, put it in the chat now. Okay. Discuss the removal of specialist detachments. So we kind of did that already.
Oh yeah, boo. I get it, but it's also like I hate to say it because it's not about the money, but it's like you did buy 2 hardcover books, and then now they're useless like a year later.
Yeah, but eventually they're going to be useless. So
yeah,
it's
but
not like you bought those
frame
books.
is
It's not like
short.
you bought those books thinking that they were going to last you forever.
No, you're correct. It's more about the lines of like Vigilus always felt like something that didn't need to be released.
Yeah, they just kind of fill the gap.
Yeah, it kind of is just like we're gonna pump this out of nowhere. So now it's gone.
Yeah. Do you like the original Slated Warlord or Cut Off the Head better?
Well, the original of 6, Cut Off the Head. I like Cut Off the Head better because it forces more decisions to make. Yeah. Like, is your Warlord valuable to your army to keep him on the board and risk that 13 points, or do you keep him off the board?
Yeah. And if you picked it, how much are you trying to commit?
Yeah, and how many points of snipers and stuff did you invest in your army? And like, how often is it you can kill a Warlord turn 1 anyway? Like, is the guy out of range? Is like, yeah, I think it's very similar, but it's cool. Yeah, it's kind of boring. Me like kill him, you get 6, but.
So we didn't talk about this, but with the points released, they also released Forge World points, and there were no points for lots of Forge World things.
Yeah, about time. Thank God.
Chaplain Dreadnoughts, obviously, no points for them.
It was anything they don't sell, right?
Hopefully. So obviously the Forge World book is not out, but hopefully this is one of the things that we wanted, right?
But I think if you go on their website, like no, they haven't sold a Chaplain Dreadnought in quite some time on the Forge World website, correct?
I don't know.
It was a couple years, and a lot of people were chining them and converting them.
Yeah.
And that was the issue with it, right? Yeah. So if Forge World if I can't put my credit card on the table and buy it from Forge World, it shouldn't have points and it shouldn't be in the game.
Yeah. Where do we fall on the issue of GW becoming less grimdark versus the idea that it's good for a universe to have a complex feel and theme? Is it becoming less grimdark? I don't know. I think people are hating on the logo.
I like the logo. It's a nice modern change.
I don't think it makes any difference to the theme.
It's clean. I used to think that they were going away from the grimdark with some of the demon stuff, but then the new Sisters of Battle, the artwork in it's not that new of a book, but the artwork is still pretty grimdark. I definitely think that they've PC'd it a little bit, and they've redacted some of the stuff that didn't make any sense, and some of the crazy stuff that, like in the 80s when you were on mushrooms, was cool, but isn't really cool anymore. So,
yeah. Okay, a breakdown of secondaries, which we kind of did. Do you see transports being super common or viable in this edition?
Oh yeah. I think they're really great because depending on the transport, obviously, depending on what it does, depending on what's inside of it, if you can find one that's pointed appropriately, things like trucks, you put smaller units in them. You now have to get through the truck, then the unit to get them off the objective. And so with a lot of these, not a lot, but a lot of these, I keep saying a lot. Some of these objectives are that you have to go a full turn. So by putting a truck in somebody's deployment zone, let's say, they now have to blow up the truck and the unit inside the truck. So they have to commit a ton of firepower. And any overkill on the truck doesn't transport to the unit. So a lot of those objectives that you have to go a full turn are really good with transports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
We might even see a bunch of drop pods dropping down.
You could. They're definitely interesting. People are still going to screen for them. The problem is the screening for the deep striking. Like you still need to screen. So,
But it's first turn, right? So
yeah. I
first
think it
turn
just
dropping.
depends on that. Like wave serpents, I think are going to be hot for a while.
Yeah.
Really good because they're very hard to kill. They have really decent damage, and the units inside of them are relatively, depending on what you put in them, could be like cheap, but they also dish a lot of firepower. So,
Yeah.
you throw some wave serpents on, you can take a couple table quarters, and some of those secondaries where it's like I gotta just hold 3 table quarters. Well, I put 2 wave serpents with units in this one, 2 wave serpents with units in this one, and my artillery's in the third one. I'm gonna get like 3 points a turn.
Yeah.
Or 2 points a turn. 2 points a turn.
Yeah. I already committed to buying a few more wave serpents for my Eldar.
Yeah, like they're a good one. Like I forget who I was taught. Like but transports give away certain other objectives, so you have to balance it, right?
Yeah, the big
As long
game
as you
hunter
don't
one.
take enough of them to give the guy full big game hunter, you're set.
Yeah. I think impulsors, like, they went up a bunch of points, but I think they're still good. I think impulsors with intercessors inside, those are 2 hard to kill units that are going to get you a bunch of points over the course of a game.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of
like
what
that.
chapter you're playing,
Yeah, I think you'll see more of them than you did previously, but a lot of them are still crap. Like I was looking at chimeras, and they still suck.
Yeah, rhinos.
I don't know. Do rhinos suck still? Yeah, they suck still. Razorbacks are great too.
Yeah, no heavy now. No heavy.
Yeah, salt
might break
cannons.
out-
Oh, you charge them. I'm
Yeah.
gonna shoot you with 8 shots. Eat it.
I might break out my old Dark Angels 10 ass backs parking lot.
Yeah, like you're not gonna be able to do 10 because they're what they went up in points.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's definitely cool. Yeah.
All right. Do you see the action secondaries being common picks?
It's hard to say.
Depends on your army.
Yeah, the answer is depending on I like some of the actions because you can do them independent of your opponent, and that's always great. But they take too long to do, and this game, too many units have too much reach. So against certain opponents, it also depends on your opponent. Like some of these artillery opponents, it's like engineers, right? Oh, if you have indirect fire, I don't take engineers.
Yeah.
And same thing here, right? With these new ones. The engineers are the old ITC one, by the way.
So we kind of answered this. How do you decide what is a good secondary pick? Do you choose based on the mission or your army or your opponent's army? I think if you have like 2 or 3 secondaries that your army can do regardless of what happens, those are like kind of the best. And you don't have to rely on what your opponent does or what your opponent has or the terrain or the mission. Yeah. Otherwise, I think if you're playing like Grey Knights, then picking a board which is good. So maybe it kind of depends on that.
Yeah. The secondaries are something that you're going to have to put a lot of thought into, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes at first, and you're going to pick ones, you're never going to score them, and then you're going to have to move on from that.
Yeah. Okay. So what constitutes battle ready for the 10 victory points? I thought
GW
they
did a
published
post.
something.
Yeah, they did a published post. It's like basically fully painted like one color on everything and based. So like it was like an ultramarine, I think, and he was like painted with contrast paints, all his like everything. Like the bolter was painted, the eyes or whatever, and then the base was done. Maybe not the eyes, but basically your army should look coherent and fully painted and based. So whether that's I paint my flesh this color, I paint my uniforms this color, I paint a couple details brown and the boots black, and then I wash it. That's enough, but the whole army has to be done to that level.
Yeah, I think in terms of tournaments, we'll just have to decide just to use the GW document. I don't know if GW is going to re-release another document or not, or they're going to have to decide amongst themselves what they consider to be worth the 10 victory points.
So I could see us at one of our tournaments going around and marking everybody's army, but it would be you're battle ready or not.
Yeah. Tick,
and so it would be like we would literally go through tick, 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 tick. Okay, out of the 150 people here, 130 are battle ready, and then these 10 are not, or whatever that is. And then there'll be like 10 on the edge that the judges will have to discuss. That's how I think it's going to go. There's going to be a couple that are always on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And those are going to be the guys that lose their shit. Because the guy at the Plastic Army, he's like, I knew I wasn't getting it. I don't care. It's the guy that's like close, but a couple of those guys don't have their bases done, or a couple of these guys don't have their fucking weapons painted, or there's always going to be that guy, right? Right on the edge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or girl.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is all the questions we had.
Great.
Okay, guys, so tune in Wednesday. What time are we gonna start on Wednesday, Chris? I don't know, like 9:30, 10, something like that.
Yeah, in the morning.
Yeah. We're gonna start.
That's the 22nd of July.
That's right. We're gonna go. I have to leave kind of early afternoon, so I'll probably play first, and then Chris and Francois can play as long as they want. And we can stream as much as we want. And then Wednesday night we will be chatting with Shane Watts. And looking forward to that conversation. And then we'll be having a rest until Saturday when we'll be streaming all day.
Yeah, streaming and swimming.
We should get a 44 by 60 floaty mat that we could play a game in the pool.
Nah, that's not fun. I like to just float and get those. You gotta float in the sun so you get that vitamin D, bro. That vitamin D fights the COVID, bro. That's what you gotta do. All right. Have a good evening.